On a cold New York afternoon, Emma, a hardworking waitress, was finally about to enjoy a much-needed meal when a homeless, disheveled man wandered into the restaurant. Ignored by everyone else, she chose to sacrifice her own lunch to feed him. But what seemed like a simple act of kindness quickly unraveled into a shocking discovery. Who was this stranger she helped, and why did his real identity leave her utterly stunned? Keep listening to find out how one selfless gesture changed everything, and let us know where you're listening from. Emma Ramirez was exhausted. After a long day of classes at New York University, all she wanted was a hot meal to keep her going. The city streets were bustling, as always, with people rushing in every direction, but Emma only had one destination in mind: La Rosa Bistro, the upscale restaurant in Manhattan where she worked part-time as a waitress. She pushed open the glass door, greeted by the familiar aroma of sizzling steaks and the chatter of well-dressed patrons. Emma let out a tired sigh, knowing she still had a few hours of work ahead of her. But today she had saved up just enough money for a small meal. She settled into a corner table, intending to treat herself for once. Just as Emma began to relax and browse through the menu, the door creaked open and a disheveled old man shuffled inside. His clothes were worn and stained, and his hair was a tangled mess. The man's eyes darted around the elegant restaurant like he was trying to find something but wasn't quite sure what. "Not again," groaned Sophia, one of Emma's colleagues. "Another homeless guy wandering in." None of the staff moved to help him. They were more concerned with serving their high-paying customers. But Emma couldn't look away. There was something lost, almost desperate, in the old man's eyes. Ignoring her colleagues' whispers, she stood up, walked over to the man, and gently took his hand. "Are you hungry?" she asked softly. The man didn't reply, but the look in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. Without hesitation, Emma guided him to a table and asked Sophia to bring a hot meal. "Put it on my tab," she insisted. Sophia rolled her eyes. "Are you serious? That's your money, Emma. He's just going to waste it." But Emma didn't care. As the old man devoured the food, she sat across from him, sipping on water since that was all she could afford now. Little did she know, this simple act of kindness was about to change her life forever. As Emma watched the old man eat, memories of her own past flooded her mind. She had grown up in a cramped apartment in Brooklyn with her mother, Rosa, and 3 younger siblings. Life hadn't been easy since her father, Manuel, had walked out on them when Emma was just 6 years old. Left with no support, Rosa took on any job she could find, cleaning houses, babysitting, even scrubbing floors in offices to keep her children fed and clothed. Emma had always been the determined one. She worked tirelessly through high school, dreaming of a better life for her family. She won a partial scholarship to New York University, but the financial burden still loomed large. To cover her rent, food, and tuition, she juggled her studies with part-time jobs. 2 years ago, another tragedy struck. Rosa was diagnosed with severe heart failure. The doctors at Mount Sinai Hospital told them that the only way to save her was through a costly surgery that would cost $20,000. For a family already struggling, it was an impossible amount. As the old man finished his meal, Emma's thoughts returned to the present. She smiled at him, but he only looked back with confusion. His eyes were filled with something she couldn't quite place. Was it gratitude or simply bewilderment? Just then, the restaurant erupted in laughter. Emma turned to see Sophia and a few other colleagues watching her. "She's playing Mother Teresa with her last few bucks," Sophia sneered. Emma's cheeks burned, but before she could respond, a firm voice cut through the laughter. "What's going on here?" All heads turned as Michael Thompson, the owner of La Rosa Bistro, walked out of the kitchen. At 34, Michael was known for his strict demeanor, but today, his usually stern face softened as he looked at the old man. For a moment, the room seemed to freeze. "Dad?" Michael's voice cracked. The old man looked up, his eyes widening. "Michael?" he whispered. Without another word, Michael rushed forward, embracing the old man who was none other than his father, Robert Thompson. Tears streamed down Michael's face as he held his father tightly, the weight of nearly a month of searching finally lifting off his shoulders. Robert had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and had wandered away from home weeks ago, getting lost in the labyrinth of New York City. Emma watched in stunned silence as the scene unfolded before her. The colleagues who had laughed at her earlier now stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do. After a long embrace, Michael turned to Emma, his eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you for taking care of him, he said quietly. Please, follow me to my office. Michael's office was a stark contrast to the bustling restaurant. It was quiet, with polished wooden furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. As Emma sat down, she couldn't help but feel nervous. What could Michael possibly want from her? Michael listened intently as Emma shared her story. She spoke about her mother's illness, her siblings, and her struggles to stay afloat. Michael was moved by her resilience and the kindness she had shown his father. Without a word, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a stack of cash. Take this, he said, handing her $1,000. It's a token of my gratitude, and I have a proposition for you. Emma's heart raced. What do you mean? My father needs a caregiver, Michael explained. Someone patient, compassionate, and trustworthy. I want to hire you. The pay will be double what you're making here. Tears filled Emma's eyes. But my schedule with college. You can work the same hours you did at the restaurant, Michael assured her. And there's more. Since you sacrificed your own meal to help my father, let me help yours. Michael pulled out his checkbook and wrote a check for $20,000. Use this for your mother's surgery, he said, handing it to her with a smile. Emma could hardly believe it. The check shook in her trembling hands. Thank you, she whispered, overwhelmed with gratitude. The weeks that followed Emma's new job as Robert's caregiver were nothing short of transformative, not just for Robert, but for Emma as well. Every afternoon, after her classes at NYU, she would take the subway to Michael's brownstone in the Upper West Side. The elegant townhouse, with its ivy-covered facade and a hint of old-world charm, was a far cry from the cramped Brooklyn apartment Emma had grown up in. Yet, she felt a sense of belonging there, as if fate had gently nudged her into this new chapter of her life. From the moment Emma stepped into Robert's life, she brought a warmth that was sorely missing. The old man, whose eyes had once been clouded with confusion, began to show signs of clarity and happiness. Emma's patience was unending. She would read to him from his favorite books, guide him on gentle walks through Central Park, and play soft classical music that seemed to calm his restless mind. Emma, you're a miracle worker, Michael said one evening, watching from the doorway as she carefully guided his father's trembling hands to fit together a puzzle. Robert, once anxious and agitated, now wore a rare smile as he worked beside Emma. It's not a miracle, Emma replied softly, glancing up at Michael. Sometimes all it takes is someone who cares. Their eyes met, and for a moment the air between them seemed to hum with an unspoken connection. Michael's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly dismissed the feeling. Emma was just an employee, he reminded himself, albeit one who had become indispensable to both him and his father. As Robert's condition improved, Michael found himself spending more time at home. He would often come back early from his office downtown, using the excuse of checking in on his father, but deep down, he knew it was Emma he was drawn to. The three of them would sit together on the rooftop terrace, surrounded by the city's twinkling lights. Emma would bring freshly brewed coffee, and they would talk about everything from books to music to their dreams. One breezy autumn evening, Emma mentioned her love for the changing seasons. Back in Brooklyn, my siblings and I would collect leaves and press them into books, she reminisced with a smile. It was our way of bringing a bit of nature into our little apartment. Touched by her story, Michael found himself wanting to know more about her. He began to ask questions about her studies, her childhood, her aspirations. And the more he learned, the more captivated he became. Emma, with her unyielding determination and kind heart, was unlike anyone he had ever met. One chilly November afternoon, Michael decided to join Emma and Robert on one of their walks. The trees in Central Park were a blaze of orange and red, their leaves crunching underfoot. Michael watched as Emma linked arms with his father, gently guiding him down the winding paths. You have a way with him, Michael remarked, walking alongside them. I've never seen him so at peace. Emma smiled, her cheeks flushed from the crisp air. He just needs someone to treat him like a person, not a patient. That afternoon marked a turning point. As they continued to meet each day, Emma and Michael's conversations grew longer, more intimate. They discovered shared interests. Both loved jazz, the quiet beauty of the city's hidden corners, and late-night conversations over cups of coffee. Michael, once a workaholic focused solely on his business, found himself looking forward to these moments more than anything else in his life. One evening in December, the first snow of the season began to fall. dusting the city in a pristine layer of white. Michael invited Emma to stay for dinner after Robert had gone to bed early. They dined by candlelight in the dining room, the soft glow reflecting off the snowflakes drifting past the windows. As they ate, their laughter filled the room, a sound that had been missing from the house for far too long. After dinner, they stepped outside onto the terrace, where the city looked like a winter wonderland. Without thinking, Michael reached out and gently brushed a snowflake from Emma's hair. The touch lingered, and as their eyes locked, the world seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them standing under the falling snow. "Emma," Michael began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I." But before he could finish, she smiled softly and turned away, her cheeks pink. "I should go," she said, her voice tinged with something Michael couldn't quite place. He watched her disappear into the snow, wondering if he had missed his chance. As winter turned to spring, their relationship blossomed like the cherry trees lining the streets of Manhattan. They didn't rush into it, taking things slow and letting their feelings grow naturally. Michael would occasionally surprise Emma with small gestures, like her favorite chai latte waiting for her after a long shift, or tickets to a jazz concert at the Blue Note. Emma, in turn, would brighten Michael's days with her laughter and lighthearted spirit. She introduced him to the simple joys he had forgotten, like the delight of street food vendors, or watching the sunset from a hidden corner of the city. The turning point came one evening when Robert, who had grown fond of Emma like a daughter, took her hand in his and said, "You make my boy smile in a way I haven't seen in years." His words struck a chord in both their hearts. It was late summer when Michael finally decided he couldn't wait any longer. He planned a quiet evening picnic in Central Park, under the soft glow of lanterns. As they sat on a plaid blanket surrounded by the scent of blooming roses, Michael took Emma's hand. "Emma," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I don't think I can imagine my life without you. You brought light back into my father's life, and into mine. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Emma's eyes as she nodded, unable to find the words to express her joy. Michael slipped a delicate sapphire ring onto her finger, a symbol of his enduring love for the woman who had changed his life. A few months later, surrounded by their closest family and friends, Emma and Michael exchanged vows in a beautiful ceremony at the Shakespeare Garden in Central Park. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city as they promised to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. Rosa, Emma's mother, stood proudly among the guests, her heart filled with gratitude for the man who had not only saved her life, but had also brought her daughter the happiness she deserved. Emma's siblings, dressed in their finest clothes, couldn't stop smiling. It was a moment of pure joy, a celebration of love, kindness, and the power of giving selflessly. After the wedding, Michael and Emma began a new chapter together, filled with hope and love. They moved into a cozy brownstone in Chelsea, where they planned to build a life together. Michael helped Emma's family transition into a more comfortable life, securing Rosa a stable job and ensuring Emma's siblings could pursue their dreams. And as they stood on their rooftop terrace, watching the city lights flicker to life, Michael turned to Emma and whispered, "Thank you for everything." Emma smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "No, Michael," she replied softly. "Thank you for seeing me, for loving me, and for changing our lives." Together, they watched the stars light up the New York sky, ready to face whatever the future had in store, hand in hand, heart to heart. And that's how Emma's simple act of kindness led to a life she never imagined, new opportunities, love, and a future she thought was out of reach. But now, it's your turn. Would you have given up your meal to help a stranger like she did? Could you have sacrificed what little you had for someone you didn't know? Tell us, what would you have done in Emma's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next story.